All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. And the viewers are smarter than the average bear. What's up, people? How you doing? We got Victory Jen on Twitter. Thanks, Victory Jen, hanging out with us on Twitter. All right. Early people in the chat. That's cool. That's cool. StreamYard is playing up. I don't know. Gangs and devastation in Acapulco. Rich China says, oil magnet says it's unrealistic to do away with fossil fuels. Seems so done. Did I read that article? I feel like I mentioned it. Well, there is some there's some admission or acknowledgement by fossil fuel companies and also banks and whatnot. They're kind of acknowledging that the whole, like, the net zero kind of thing is not really going to happen, which is true. I mean, if you're going to if you're going to continue business as usual, if you're going to continue, having cars and roads and cities and, mega cities, you're not going to get rid of fossil fuels, that's for sure. Not anytime soon. Yeah, that's true. John Glad, yes. When the fossil fuels go, we will go the way of the dodo. Don't you know, no. Say it ain't so so. My rap is just so so. So is the Acapulco situation because of the hurricane, I'm assuming? Well, again, I have conflicted feelings about that. You know, one part of me feels like bad for the people that live there and bad for Acapulco in general, and another part of me doesn't think that you know, tourist situations should probably. I mean, I don't know. Tourism is terrible for the planet. It's one of the worst things for the planet. Among all the bad things for the planet, tourism is terrible. But it keeps a lot of people alive and it keeps a lot of economies going and all of that. To wrap all of that together, and that's the problem. Don't you know? Wouldn't you say? Hey, y'all remember that we have T-shirts, Black Bear News T-shirts? I know. um, but you know, if you're super into, if you want to rep the show, you can get you a Black Bear News T-shirts and be one of the few, the proud, the bears. It's funny if maybe a year ago or more than a year ago. Excuse me. I was at a random. I was at a friend's concert. Ha, that's a good idea. Salt Lakers, yeah. Black Bear News condoms. Yeah, they'll be black, of course. Um, it's a great idea. Yeah, from the koala to the grizzly. What are you? Oh, I'm a panda. Where will I move to? I mean, when LA has its first hurricane, nobody's going to move. But um, I don't think anybody's going to. Nobody be moving necessarily. But it's bound to happen, though. I feel like um, I feel like I don't know. There's some other calamities that could probably take LA out. I don't know if it's a hurricane. I mean, you know, Houston still stands. So does New Orleans. Um, and LA, you know, people just love it here. It's resilient. I mean, we're not gonna. Nobody's gonna move because of that. I think something else would have to take it out. Oh, I was saying I was at a friend's show and some random guy, some random hippie was like, "Hey, it's Black Bear News." He like spotted me in the crowd. Hey, oh yeah, what's up, man? I was like, wow, that's weird. That's just really weird. I get recognized out in public like for being a musician, but like I feel like the Black Bear News crew is like a very, very, very niche crowd. But anyways, you could wear your Black Bear News T-shirt out and about, and people could be like, "I've seen that show." I know what's going on. Hey, if you're on Twitter, you know what to do. Like it, love it, repost it. Yeah, I think it would take, um, well, like a major earthquake. I don't know what would clear people out of L.A. My guess is it would be something like food and water shortages, something that would cut the supply lines or the water lines. Now that could clear, that could get people to to vacate. What's up, Rockfin people? Or Rockfin people over here? It's weird because I have a few Rockfinners watching, and but a lot of people watch on Rockfin after the show, which is interesting. I know that when I come back during the day, I notice that there's some folks hanging out watching the show on Rockfin, which is interesting to me. I don't know who's watching the show on Rockfin, honestly. I have a lot of followers on Rockfin though. Northridge was the Northridge earthquake was, oh god, I want to say it was what, 91? 90? Am I wrong? No, earlier than that. Is that right? When was Northridge? 94. 94. That was the last big one. Um, last big one in the area. And it did some damage. It did do some damage. So 30 years ago. 30 years. Yeah, we are kind of due. We had a big one a few not long before the Northridge one. If I'm not mistaken. I want to say it was when I was getting out of high school, or I don't know, 1986, 85. Uh, there was a pretty big one. I remember it well. Dang it. Hold on. Let's see if I can see this. Okay, I'm looking. Oh, Whittier Narrows. That's the one. 1987. That's the one. I mean, I kind of, the Northridge one was pretty big. I really remember the Whittier Narrows one, and I also remember there was a 1971, the San Fernando quake. I remember I was 4. I was 4 years old. Um, Osama, you do got the T-shirt. But if you want to be in the in crowd, you get you a Black Bear News T-shirt. In '71, I was 4 years old, and I was walking into I remember getting up. I was getting up and walking to the bathroom, and like it started, and as I was walking to the bathroom, I remember this vividly. This whole shelf full of stuff came down like right in front of me, bam, and I was like 4, and I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Like I don't know what's going on. I know that that's probably bad, right? Somewhere in my consciousness, I was like, this isn't good. I think my mom got up after that and scooped me up. But the Whittier Narrows quake, man, I remember that because I was very stoned. I was very, very stoned. And I had this friend who was an amazing drummer. This is a great story to me. I had a friend who was amazing. He was an amazing drummer. He was probably he was just he was just a really big guy and just hit the heck out of the drums. Had to have multiple like just stacks of bricks in front of his kick drum to keep it in place. And he lived right up the street from me. He lived like a block away. And so I was sitting in my apartment where I lived. I lived at my dad's apartment, and I think I was pretty stoned. I remember it. Oh, this is what happened. Early in the morning. Okay, so I was just kind of perpetually stoned. But anyways, it happened early in the morning. I was kind of getting up, getting ready. I think I was like making some breakfast. My brother was in the shower, and the quake happened, and I ran outside, and my brother jumped out of the shower. He didn't have any clothes on. He had a towel on. Anyways, I ran outside, and it was kind of like mayhem. There was like car alarms going off. But later in the day, this drummer friend of mine came over. Later in the day, I was stoned, and this friend of mine came over who was a drummer, and he was like, yeah, man, that was crazy. That earthquake was nuts. I was in my apartment. I was practicing. I was like, damn, I'm rocking the house. Anyways, whatever. And anyways, it was funny. Oh, word. Thanks for the contribution, Rich Diana on Rockfin. I appreciate you, man. Very generous, sir. Kevin, where are you in regards to the San Andreas fault line? Well, we're all kind of close. But interesting. So here's another thing. Let's see. Well, let's find out. Let's find out how close I am. But that Whittier Narrows quake was it was pretty big. It was really big. Like the house was rocking. And Johnny was rocking the house, dude. Anyways, hold on. Let's see if I can get a quick San Andreas fault map. I know we're just kind of talking about stuff. Here, I'll show it on the screen. Actually, though, here's not kind of a weird story though. That earthquake, the Whittier Narrows earthquake, kind of initiated a bit of a a series of panic attacks in me. So because I was perpetually stoned, I would get stoned and I would start feeling like things were were shaking. Anyways, whatever. So here it is. Here's the fault line. Can you see it? Oh no, you can't see it. Sorry, I know we're just kind of talking and so here's the fault line. Jamo. So it's pretty well east of us, but there's all these other, kind of tributary, right? It's like a river. It's almost like a river, the fault line. Well, that was weird. Kind of, yeah. It's somewhat close, but the fault line's kind of. Whoa, that's weird. I'm getting a lot of like interference all of a sudden. So there's, from the fault lines, there's all these other little fault line, like smaller. That's San Andreas is a major one. There's other little ones that kind of branch off. Anyways, yeah, it was not a good combination to be. I was probably high except whenever that happened. It was early in the morning, but I was high a lot in those days, unfortunately. These days, I'm high on life, bro. I sound like Dane Wigington. Who are you talking to? Oh, you're not talking to me. That's obsolete optics responding to somebody. The ice nucleation people. All right. Um. Oh, I don't know if you thought those stories were interesting or not. uh, but anyways, my friend Johnny came over and we both got really stoned and talked about the earthquake that day, Whittier Narrows. Nothing happened. Nothing happened where we were at necessarily, but some people did get to 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 get some damage. All right. All right. So let's talk about let's talk about things. Oh, I wanted to just an addendum to yesterday's silence, right? They were talking about the acoustic, the silence of nature, the noise of nature. Um, we were talking about the dearth or lack of noise. That what's the noise of nature is getting less. Well, this is the other article that Osama sent me. But this was what was frightening. They're kind of talking about the same thing. He's a field recording person. And, recording nature and noticing a difference. So anyways, Bernie Krause began recording ecosystem sounds simply because he found them beautiful and relaxing. Krause has ADHD, don't we all, and found no medication would work. The only thing that relieved the anxiety was being out there, just listening to soundscapes, he says. It could be calming, right? You want to sleep soundly? I think listening to nature sounds would be good. Inadvertently, he began to gather a rich trove of data over the next 3 decades. He would return each April to the spot at the big leaf maple, set his recorder down, and wait to hear what the sound what it would reveal. But in April last year, Krause played back his recording and was greeted with something he had not heard before: total silence. The recorder had run for its usual hour, but picked up no birdsong, no rush of water over stones, no beating of wings. I've got an hour of material with nothing at the high point of spring, says Krauss. What's happening here is just a small indication of what's happening almost everywhere on an even larger scale. I just wanted to read that part because that part is sad and scary. And doesn't that go along with, remember we were talking about the smell of the ocean? The lack of ocean smell, which is so absolutely loud to me, right? If you could hear smell, I can hear smell, but the smell of the ocean was so loud to me as a kid, right? And it's supposed to be just kind of this overwhelming ocean smell. And who was it? Delene, that mentioned to me about the smell, and I was in Puerto Rico and I realized that I couldn't really smell the ocean. And that, it's the same, that's kind of the same thing of like not being able to hear sounds, right? Are you talking to me? Obsolete optics? I did actually drop quite a bit of acid back in the day. Not no mo. It's been a long time. Anyways, I won't even talk about that. Let's just say it's a long time. It's been a long time. Damn, Salt Lakers, that was racist. Dang. Cooking. There you go. There's some jamming food in Puerto Rico. Really tasty. Yeah. I had to quit that acid though. No, acid was something people did back in the day. It was the thing the kids were doing, and I don't recommend it actually. There are other ways to achieve enlightenment and or consciousness and or greater insight into the universe than acid. I feel like taking acid is like watching a movie of consciousness and not necessarily being in or of higher consciousness, right? I had a friend, sorry, we'll go off again. I had a friend who used to take acid just recreationally, like all the time. Like told me, and this person just is just like a normal dude. I've known this guy for a really long time, ex-military. And one day, and this was 20 years ago, I said, he was like tripping on, when I met him, he was like tripping on acid. And then every time I saw him, he was tripping on acid. I was like, dude, how much acid do you take? And he's like, oh, I've tripped over, he was like 200 or 300 times. I was like, God dang. Like, how are you still functioning? Why are you not in a facility at this point in time? I don't know. I guess he could just handle it. I don't know if he still does it or not, but don't do that. I really do not. Seriously, don't take acid. If you're thinking about it, don't take it. And certainly don't take it several times. That's just me. But if you want to take acid, be careful. I've seen people go crazy. I mean, I've seen quite a few people who, were acid trip the rejects, and they had lost it, and that's not cool. You don't want to be one of those people. You wouldn't be here if not for LSD. Probably me neither. Probably, but I'm just saying I've been sober for a long time, and I've known a lot of people who were straight edge sober people, and I can tell you that you don't really need the drugs to get to the higher consciousness or the higher frequencies. You really don't need it. But it's something to do. I like this. I like this graph. Man, I like this graph. Can I tell you how much I like this graph? Because it has to do with, well, evidence, right? This is how evidence works. Yeah, you've been tripping in the Tabernacle, Salt Lickers? Have you ever tripped? Ever gone to the Tabernacle on acid? I can see we have a bunch of drug-addled loonies in here. All right. In case anyone tries to tell you, but they were predicting global cooling in the 70s, and they were wrong then. They were wrong then, right? Remember, it was supposed to be an ice age. Where is this ice age they were predicting? Where is this? My favorite is, where's the global warming? I don't know. But these are the peer-reviewed papers predicting global warming and cooling from 65 to 79. There are way more papers, especially as time went on. As time went forward, there were way more papers predicting warming. Now, there were more papers predicting cooling. After 1970, it looks like there were quite a few. It looks just like a rise in papers in general, but this is how evidence works. If there's more evidence, right, and that's one source or one study or one person or one viewpoint, is just interesting, right? One person saying, I think this way, or I think this is not happening. It's just interesting. And it could be something that you look into, think about, understand, etc. But the way that evidence works is this: if there's a preponderance of evidence on one side of an argument, right? If the mountain is higher, if the evidence mountain is higher on one side, it means that side is probably right. That's probably the answer, right? That's probably the thing that is happening. In general, most of the time, that's how it works. That's just how it works. Which is why global warming is real, right? Because, you can have your skepticism. You could be skeptical. You could ask questions. You can, take an opposite position. But your opposite position doesn't really stack up, right? There are not enough data points to support your position. There are very few data points to support your position, right? And a lot of those are cherry picked, or, sometimes concocted. Right? Right. So, yeah, that would freak me out too, Rich Diana. That would freak me out. And I've had one or two of those trips where I was like, I'm good. I am straight. All right. So yeah, that's how it works. So, you could take the position that, it's not, climate change isn't happening or warming isn't happening, but your position is not backed up by data. It is just not. Sorry. It is just not. Your one or two or, handful of data points do not overcome the mountain of evidence and data that supports warming. Sorry. And I don't know what to tell you. That's just what it is. It's like in basketball. Ball don't lie. Right? You lose. You lose on the amount of data and evidence that stacks up supporting climate change and not supporting, right? You just lose. You lose on there's just not enough numbers. You don't have the numbers. You don't have the people. You don't have the data. You don't have the evidence. When you do have the mountains of data and evidence, when you do have supporting and we can go through different subjects, right? Subject by subject. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that right now. But there are other, issues that people take one side or the other of, right? Very, vehemently. Very, strong opinions on one side or the other, right? We get, there's a bunch of issues, vaccines or, right? Other things. And you can apply the same thing to those arguments. Do you have enough data and evidence to back up your side? Not some, right? Having some data and evidence to back up your side doesn't mean you win. That doesn't mean you win the argument. No, that's not what it means. It means you have some data points. But when you stack your data points up against the other data points on the other side of the argument, which one has more data points supporting it? Generally, that indicates which thing is true or not. No? Of course, it's not a 100% lock on that equation, but it's just generally true. It's just the Occam's razor of truth of how things work, right? When you have more supporting evidence on your side, that means you're probably in the right. That's kind of how it works. And that's a good way to approach almost any subject. Again, please send me all the data and evidence that you have that tells me that climate change is not happening, and I will welcome this data and evidence, and I'll be like, great. I'm going to go, buy a couple of more cars and a boat and an off-road vehicle and maybe a motorcycle, and I'm going to, get another bigger house. I'm going to, just go out and buy all the things and have a good time. If that's the case, I probably wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't do that anyways, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't worry about my carbon footprint or what I'm doing to the earth with my consumption. I wouldn't worry about it so much. All right. Okay, let's look at this article here. Well, hold on. There's another thing I want to talk about. Before we get there, we will get there. But obviously, it doesn't mean that it's not a valid thing to question. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, isn't that how science works? Right? The rigorous testing, rigorous skepticism. That's how, you find out whether something is true or not. You test whether it's true or not. So, there's actually a position for skepticism and denialism. There's actually a position or even a helpful, maybe a need for the skepticism and the denialism to bolster the argument that something is true or not true. But again, it's just, if something has more data and evidence, you probably should go like, well, until I hear otherwise, probably have to go with that one. But this is crazy. China has just exceeded 43C for the first time on record in the month of April. 110 degrees, pretty much, give or take. That's hot. Oh, geez. Hold on. This is a crazy video. Let's watch this for a second. From Climate Defiance, breaking, we just shut down a gala honoring U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski. Murkowski is a murderer. She incinerates us to enrich her cronies. As Chevron's top lobbyists gave her an award, we stepped in and stopped the ceremony. Respect us or expect us. That's awesome. Yes. Look at this. Wait, hold on. Should we get sound going? Who's falling off the stage? Oh, it's one of the protesters. Oh my God. Dang. That's great. I'm a fan of protest. Most protests, almost everywhere, unless they're fake protests. Oh, getting a little backtracked here. Anyways, if you want to know, Lisa Murkowski is a U.S. Senator from Alaska. And she has been in office since 2002. Is she a red or is she a blue? It doesn't really matter. She's a purple, I'm sure. Whatever color you are, you're a purple. Republican, of course. Yeah, she's a red purple. But they all take the money. Let's find. So she's a red, but let's talk about the blues. We're going to talk about some blues. And this is crazy story. Before we get into the story, just reminding you all, if you like this show, if you enjoy the show, if you appreciate the show, you can contribute to the show in many, many ways. The PayPal, the Patreons, the Cash Apps, the Venmos, and the T-shirts, etc. So, kindly consider supporting the show in any way possible. And thank you to the people that already do. You know who you are. And all the links are in the description box of the YouTubes and the Rockfins. Oh, by the way, I will be on Rumble as soon as I can update my StreamYard. I just need to upgrade my StreamYard, and I can stream to Rumble. Maybe I'll pick another place too, since I've got more streaming capabilities. So maybe I'll do Rumble and I don't know what. Twitch. Does anybody care about Twitch? Somewhere else. I'll stream to somewhere else. Anyways, This is from Heated. Reprehensible. Fossil fuel industry infiltrates civil rights convention. Hey. Right? They're all getting in on the fossil fuel money. This is what's hilarious to me. I'll cease and desist with the breakdown before I even read this. Anyways, Al Sharpton invited methane representatives to his National Action Network convention where they fearmongered attendees about renewables. Well, that sounds downright right wing. Or downright wing. Downright right wing. Sounds weird to say it like that. Fear-mongering about renewables. Golly, that sounds like a... Well, either you're really smart or you're really dumb. I don't know. Either you have questions from the right perspective or the wrong perspective. Who knows? But let's look at the story a little more. When attendees of Al Sharpton's annual Civil Rights Convention showed up for a panel on clean energy, the famed minister and TV personality promised them a stellar talk about energy transition and racial justice. Because, you know, those two things go hand in hand. Or that's part of the, that's the selling of the game, right? They're trying to make it seem, right? They're trying to market the renewable transition in several ways, right? And one of the ways that they're marketing the renewable, the transition to a new energy is to, couch it or cloak it in this equity, an equity message. When the real equity message would be stop poisoning people, right? Whether you're poisoning them with lithium or mineral extraction, right? Let's talk about the mines in the Congo and how much equity is going on there, right? Let's talk about how much racial justice is going on with the children, slave labor being used in Congo and other places to mine the minerals for this energy transition. So it's a bit ridiculous, right? I'm sorry for the interference, the electrical interference. I don't know why this is happening. Sorry. It keeps creeping back in. Anyways, what they got was 4 paid members of the methane gas industry who described themselves as Democrats, speaking truth to power, telling them that phasing out fossil fuels is not in the best interest of the black community. Wow. A very curious civil rights discussion. The panel, titled Affordable Energy is a Civil Rights Issue, was hosted on Thursday by them. But so they're actually going in the opposite direction. It was hosted on Thursday by the National Action Network, deemed our nation's most important civil rights organization by President Joe Biden. Well, all right. Then it must be. The multi-million-dollar nonprofit describes itself as an activist social justice organization that works within the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King. All right, let's, invoke the name of MLK, of course, because that makes it even more better, more equitable. Sharpton said he convened the panel because there's controversies that I think need to be dealt with, discussed. Then 4 members of the gas industry front group, Natural Allies for a Clean Energy Future, moderator Donald Cravens, former Senator Mary Landrieu, former Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter, and former Congressman Kendrick Meek walked on stage. Against a backdrop reading, "No justice, no peace." Man, they're really laying it on thick. The panelists falsely told attendees that methane gas is a clean fuel. They said that access to methane should be seen as an issue of civil rights, and that the idea of net zero emissions is primarily being pushed by rich people who do not understand the struggles of affordability. I mean, on some levels, that could be true. But that it's very immediate, right? Of course. I mean, it's one of the things that's always going to be used, in a as a wedge issue or in a wedge issue style, right? Like, well, we need to tackle climate change or get rid of particular chemicals or particular, energy source or something, and people are always going to be like, but what about the immediacy of people's needs to, right? I mean, what if you said, what if people really were trying to get cars off the road, and people were putting forward legislation to limit the number of cars on the road and all that kind of stuff. There would obviously immediately be groups that would say, well, this is going to impact poor people first. They'd probably be right. I don't know how you get around that, but in some, in the immediate and on the surface is actually it's correct, right? Just giving people the things that they need at the cheapest price, the most easily accessible. It's like everything is Walmart, right? You need to get just your basic stuff, and you need to get it as cheaply and easily as possible, right? That's always on some level is going to win. The lowest common denominator, the cheapest, most easily accessible things are always going to win in a quote unquote free market. You have folks of wealth and good intention who say, oh, we need zero emissions. We need to do away with quote unquote fossil fuels, said Meek. Was all these rich people out here trying to get rid of the fossil fuels. That's why they have private jets. Well, natural gas is a clean burning fuel and affordable. Statements were striking, given that scientists, climate justice, and civil rights organizations have long argued that gas is a dangerously volatile fuel, both economically and environmentally. The fossil fuel industry puts black lives in danger. It's really that simple, said Mustafa Santiago Ali, the EPA's former chief environmental justice official and longtime climate justice advocate. I mean, it's also the reason why people are pushing back against, farm reform, like in Europe, right? And anywhere else for that matter. I mean, what they're trying to do with farming in Europe might actually, it actually is right on a scientific level. It's correct. But you're hampering, people's immediate ability to grow food or sell food or, right, produce food in a certain way. So there's going to be, if you're, when you're messing with people's basic needs, that's why, I mean, you really need to, get super communistic about a real transition. Because you're going to have to just give people their basic needs while you switch to something better. And, for me, obviously, better is not, electrified everything and battery powered everything. That's not necessarily better to me, but right. But you're going to have to give people their basic, in a system where everything is capitalism or everything is a free market, quote, supposed free market system. People are going to, absolutely scream and cry and protest, and they have every right to, right, about access to just their basic needs, food, gas, energy, right? And people are going to fight this. So doing it within this paradigm of, trying to have the free market, be a conduit through which you exact change is just not going to work. You're going to have some kind of control over that. You're going to have to give people things in order to actually induce a different way of life. You know what I'm saying? Violent hippie on Rockfin. Good handle, by the way. I often feel like a violent hippie. I'm not really violent. I'm a hippie. I have violent thoughts. Is that okay? Is this thing on? Sorry. I'll keep reading. We know that the fossil fuel industry has played a significant role in many of the public health impacts in our communities and the shortening of our lives and in limiting other types of economic opportunities, he added. So when we embrace fossil fuel industries playing a role in our education and decision making, we continue to hold onto the frame of surviving instead of thriving. They keep us in survival mode, and we're trying to break that. Anyways, the NAACP has said that methane gas poses significant damages to the health and well-being of frontline communities and is not a climate solution. The NAACP has also warned against these exact rhetorical tactics from the fossil fuel industry targeting black communities, noting that the industry creates deceptive alliances with local churches, nonprofit organizations, and other groups to downplay the environmental and economic harms of their products. The panel did not feature any rebuttal or representation of other perspectives, which confounded climate justice advocates like Anthony Rogers Wright. He called the decision a propaganda panel. You invite Senator Landrieu from Louisiana, but you don't invite Sharon Levine from Cancer Alley, Rogers Wright said. She should speak to the need to get off fossil fuels as a means of survival. Ding, ding, ding. Anyways, it's, the propaganda is thick and is everywhere. And this article, actually indicates a whole bunch of things. But for one, the Democrats or people on the liberal side of the aisle are totally bewitched and beguiled by corporate propaganda. And they push corporate propaganda and corporatism and corporate profits the same way that the right wing does too, right? It's not a lot of difference. They all serve the same master, is what I'm trying to say. And it's also just perplexing to me too, as far as the sides of the political aisle, right? What they believe to be true and correct can be very influenced by propaganda, right? You can see through some propaganda, but you can't see through the other propaganda, right? Like on the left. I know. I'm sorry. I'm gonna bore you with some repetition, but on the left, people can see through fossil fuel industry propaganda, or can see that there's a concerted effort there to make people accept something that's completely damaging, ultimately very damaging, very destructive to the planet and to people. Right? People on the left can see through that stuff and can see how that's a problem. Whereas people on the right can't see that. They're like, fossil fuels are great. You're trying to take away my fossil fuels, I'm going to fight you. Right? And then there's, conversely on the flip side, seems that the right can see through a lot more of like the big pharma medical industrial complex propaganda. They can see, for now, what it is. I don't know. I think it's a mixed bag, but seems like people on the left are far more willing to accept that propaganda and hey, no, this is just science, and they're trying to help us out here, right? And I don't know. And I think that there's a lot of nuance to the, on both sides around all of these issues. But it's just interesting what people can see through and what they can't see through. When it's kind of, it's the same thing. It's a major corporation trying to push something dangerous on you for profit. Are you going to, are you going to suck it up? Right? Are you going to be like, this propaganda tastes good. Give me more. Whatever you're selling, I'll take it. Give me more. Give me, So. You enjoy $25 electric bill and free hot water? Where the truth? What are you talking about? Where's that? Or are you just talking about people in general? Free hot water? Yeah. Or are you just talking about people enjoying cheap energy at the moment? I'm confused. Explain it to me. Solar and live in Florida? Yeah. There you go. Well, certainly. Enjoy it. Enjoy it while you can. I mean, if you could do something for cheaper and better, I mean, who am I to? $150-degree water from the sun. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind having me some of that free hot water too. I mean, I like hot water. I do. One day I'll get off the civilizational teat of hot water. But right now, I'm weak. I am weak. I am weak. All right, guys. Well, that does it for me. Thank you all for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. And thank you for the conversation. Appreciate y'all. I will be back tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, hold on. Osama says the water company on Long Island charges $25 on top of my $8 bill to remediate military industrial corporation Grumman's pollution. Wow. Wild. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Until next time, peace.